Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our interview with Reham Fagiri, the co-founder and CEO of AptDeco. Before we get started, while I see many WAFFA people who are familiar with WAFFA on the call, for those of you who might be less familiar with us, I just wanted to take a minute to tell you a little bit more about the organization. WAFFA is on a mission to support the female startup community. We are a 501c3 nonprofit alumni club. We're building a strong network for Wharton and Penn alumni who are founders, funders, and friends. We're one of the fastest growing clubs at the university with nearly 6,000 members. Melinda, do you want to take off your screen now? Thank you. Here, we're like a real collaborative team here, guys. Women-led businesses have been largely overlooked by the investment community. We launched WAFFA when we discovered that only 13% of Penn founders are women, and they raise just 6% of venture dollars. And when you look at the numbers for Stanford and Harvard and other schools, those reveal similar trends. Overall, the stat that's generally cited, and you'll hear a lot, is that less than 3% of VC funding goes to women founders. So the idea behind WAFFA is to address the lack of networks that facilitate access to critical resources. So through our programs, our activities, our events, we're building an ecosystem that fosters growth for women in the startup world and accelerates our access to capital and confidence. And if you'd like to learn more, Melinda's going to be adding links in the chat, our website, sign up for our weekly newsletter. We have a really robust WhatsApp community that we just started. And as I said, those links in the chat. I want to introduce my co-president, Caitlin Quinn. So I'm based here in Brooklyn and Caitlin's over in San Francisco. So we're covering both bases, even though our membership is global. And we have a couple of other WAFFA leadership team members. First of all, Melinda, who I've been yelling at the whole. Melinda's going to be here to help us through the talk. And if you have any questions, please add those to the chat. I see Netta Telebian-Funk on the line. We have Lori Rosenthal, who's been a great leadership team member. And if I've missed any others, please speak up or I'll get you later. So let's get started. I'm really excited today to be speaking with Reham Fagiri. As a New Yorker, I know your company is everywhere, but I see a lot of orange trucks driving around Brooklyn. And so to me, you're like pretty famous. You're like the lady behind the trucks. As I'm sure most of you know, AptDeco is a leading furniture resale platform that makes buying and selling furniture really easy, efficient, and sustainable. The company was incubated at Y-Combinator and has raised more than $19 million. Reham was born and raised in Khartoum, Sudan, and came to the US for college. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from the University of Maryland and an MBA from Wharton. Prior to starting our AptDeco, Reham worked at Goldman Sachs in various engineering and management positions, focusing on design, building, and launching new software applications for the firm. And she served on the Fast Company Impact Council and the Rewriting the Code Advisory Board, which serves to advance women in business and tech. Super excited to be having this conversation. So just tell us about AptDeco and that every founder has that aha moment, that sparked their business idea.
So excited to be here, and especially about safe space with Wharton alums. So thank you for being here, everyone. And thanks for hosting this, Pam and Melinda. I know you guys have put a lot of effort into this, so super excited to be here. So I started AptDeco. So AptDeco is, like you mentioned, it's a resale platform for furniture. So people can go on our website to list their furniture to sell, and when it sells, we pick it up and deliver it. So it's for buying and selling furniture. Really, I started it because I was trying to sell my furniture when I was finishing business school and moving back to New York for a job. I was not planning at that point to start a business of my own. Sometime in the future, I was planning to. But I was trying to sell my furniture on Craigslist and just had really tough experiences from, as a woman, I had these strangers coming to my apartment, felt really uncomfortable, one, but two, just the awkwardness of people negotiating my apartment. And I remember this one interaction where a woman came and she bought my West Elm bed, which was a beautiful bed. And she was like, hey, can you help me move it down to my car? But then it wouldn't fit in her car. So we were stuck on 16th Street trying to figure out like what to do with this bed that she just bought. So it's like all these weird friction points that I was experiencing. And then also, as you all know, the class size of Wharton is so big, right? And so everybody was asking, like, what are you going to do with your furniture? Most people move out of Philly, as everyone knows here, and everybody was just talking about it during graduation. So I had these weird experiences. I also had a safe, like an incident where I felt very unsafe. A gentleman came in my apartment and got really upset. And I was just like, this is crazy. It needs to stop. Why are we still, why is this still happening? Airbnb and Uber and all these companies had already taken off, and it just felt like this is the time. I got to do something about it. So the premise from the beginning was a community first, trusted community, bringing payments online and transactions online, and adding pickup and delivery. And that's what we built 10 years ago, and here we are.
And you started in New York, but you've expanded, right?
Yeah, so we launched out of New York City in 2014, which is kind of crazy to say it's 10 years ago. And we started actually initially working with moving companies, and then we brought logistics in-house, I think in 2015. And so what that means is like now we operate our own logistics arm of the business where we handle the pickup and delivery of furniture without warehousing, which is really the key innovation that we built here, is matching people, a lot of software to make the matching of people quickly, and also like the routing and all of that. And then we've launched nationally actually since. And so we've now become a national business as of 2 years ago, and we've built our carrier network for like, this is gonna sound like a mouthful, but a mouthful, bulky unpackaged goods. So things that are not in a pallet, things that are not in a box that need to be moved from one place to another. There's really no one else doing this. It's a really hard problem to solve. And we kind of accidentally became a logistics company, but also now that's our moat. That's what makes us different. And it's like really exciting to be in this space.
Wow. So marketplace, so you built a marketplace. That seems really hard. Like, how do you solve that sort of like chicken and egg? Like you have to get buyers, but you need the sellers, but the sellers aren't there if the buyers aren't. Like, how did you do that?
Ooh, well, yes, marketplaces are so tough because it's like you got to always keep a balance. So we've always been supply constrained. And so when we actually first got started, we were hacking Craigslist. So literally I would, go on Craigslist and email people. I'm like, hey, like we just launched this company. You should consider listing there. And, 1 in 10 people would actually list their furniture. And then, we just like start to do advertising and stuff like that to kind of get it off the ground. And then once people listed their stuff on our website, we would go back on Craigslist. Like this is how we were hacking it initially, like, getting from 0 to 1, go back on Craigslist, like relist it again with like plus delivery, like the title of the listing plus delivery with a link to our website. And that's how we got our first customers. And since then, like, we've looked at our data, we learned that as we continue to be supply constrained, that we needed certain brands. A lot of people just love certain brands. Like 60% of our sales come from 10 to 15 brands, like West Elm and IKEA and Pottery Barn. And so for us, that was another big aha moment, kind of fast forward as we started scaling is, well, how do we get a lot of these brands on our platform? And so we actually started working with retailers. So now we also power resale for a lot of the large furniture retailers, helping them like move through excess inventory, returns, floor models. And for us, it's a great way to get access to great quality supply. And for a great way to move through inventory that's usually, sitting in their distribution centers or their outlet stores.
So it's a separate channel that they have, sort of like when you bring something, when you like Patagonia resale, where it's like signed, sealed, and delivered, like this is a official Patagonia product, it's fine to like that.
Yeah. So it's a variety. So for example, with some brands, we are a secondary resale channel for them. So they are selling products that are, like, for example, with Selm, stuff that's in their outlet stores. And I know there like folks in Philly or like folks here in New York. There's one in Riverhead. There's an outlet store in Riverhead. These products are actually on AptDeco as well. So instead of having to go to the store, you can find them on AptDeco. And what we're doing is we're helping them sell through a lot more inventory faster. It's getting us great supply, but they're able to move through products faster so they can empty their DCs quicker. For other brands, we're actually now white labeling. So we're creating that Patagonia experience where it's a resale experience. It looks and feels like the brand, but it's all powered by our marketplace and the logistics and the resale and all of that.
Oh, it's really interesting. One of the lines I pulled out of the interview that we had with you was sort of like knowing that we're creating a sustainable future while solving a genuine problem for people makes all the hard work worth it. And I know we're talking to a lot of founders, and it's really interesting, like how do you build something that's useful and for profit, but is still a sustainable business? It's sort of like the Holy Grail.
Yes. And, I'll have to be honest, like when we started this, I was not thinking about the sustainability aspect, but we actually learned about it from our customers. So, like I mentioned, even how I tell my story, right? Like we launched this because I was trying to sell my furniture and I saw that there was a business need, but we quickly learned that of course, we're part of circularity. We're diverting products from landfills. And then it turns out that 12 million tons of furniture is landfilled every year. It's just as
Wow.
people talk about clothing and like how much fast fashion is impacting the environment, but I think it's 15 million tons of clothing is landfill every year versus 12 million
Yeah.
tons of furniture. So it's not that very different, right? And so it's a really, really massive problem, and it's not really discussed a lot. So for us, as we started thinking about, wow, we are creating a platform that actually can positively impact the environment. Like, how do we talk about it? How do you talk about it from an authentic way? And also, how do we educate people that this is making, choosing secondhand as their first choice can have really great ripple effects for them, of course, but also for the environment. And so what we do in our marketplace, we really talk about it from a approachable and accessible kind of point of view. So one, it needs to be easy. It needs to, you shouldn't have to jump through hoops to choose something that's better for the environment. It should be, they're choosing AptDeco first and foremost because it's great design, it's great for like finding good qualities furniture, it's convenient, it's all these things. And also they're choosing it because it's helping, divert products from landfills. And so the way we communicate it, if you choose buying the sofa, it's the equivalent of removing X number of cars from the road, or it's the
Oh,
equivalent.
wow.
So we really, I don't want to use the word dumb it down, but really make it approachable. So it's like, hey, just making this choice has a real ripple effect beyond just, furnishing your home. Or like this is the equivalent to X number of trees being planted by selling this piece of furniture instead of just putting it in the curb. So, and we saw that really resonated with our customers. So for us, as we think about the future, this is really, and I speak in a lot of panels about like, sustainability, and it really needs to be accessible. It really needs to be simple. It really needs to be easy for the consumer. Uh,
Right.
and it
Right.
needs to be affordable. All of these things have to apply, and it needs to make business sense also for everyone who's involved.
Yeah. You talked about that, like when you first got started, that you found that customers sort of had sort of like an ick factor about like furniture. How did you validate that? Everyone always talks about like your MVP, your minimal viable product. Like, how did you validate that customers would, trust a platform for furniture transactions?
Yeah, we actually, such a great question. So when we first got started, I think we just had early adopters, people who were just so
Yeah.
fed up of Craigslist. And so they were willing to trust this random person who emailed them, asked
Yeah,
them
yeah, yeah.
like, list their furniture. And so like that really was like the first piece of it. But what we saw is when, people will use us, especially in the early days, they will say that I was skeptical. Like it was the key feedback was I was skeptical at first, but then
Right.
it was amazing. And so it was like everybody started like that. And for us, that was a big moment that we knew we had to address. And so, one, branding is very important.
Mm,
Trust is very important. So, like, even if you're in New York, and if you were in New York back in like, actually, we still do it, but we started doing subway advertising probably earlier than most companies. And
right.
that really was like one, of course, to acquire customers, but also it's like, oh, wow, this is legitimate. This is not like another Craigslist because that was the only option available at the time. Then we started adding a lot more, like even just the user experience. We started adding a lot more people on our website, photos, and even the reviews of people. And so we saw a shift from I was skeptical at first to this is incredible. And like we really sort of changed consumer behavior, and it's also changed how people feel about us, and they started trusting us and telling their friends about us. We're now like, 55% of our business comes from actually word of mouth and referrals.
Wow. So at the time you started it, there were a lot of people getting into these like peer-to-peer marketplaces, and you did have a lot of competition. So what's happened to everybody? How did
Ooh, it's been a journey. Let's put it that way. Yeah, we've had many competitors come and go. Everyone who's tackled this space except for us has tried it in a different way. So most competitors who have now, all of them are gone, direct competitors have tried to consign, which essentially means warehousing, so a capital intensive business model, where they would like pick up the piece, it's great for the customer if they accept
Yeah.
it, but it's economics sort of business wise just like not doesn't make sense. And so all these competitors had raised way more money than us. Like we're talking about 5 to 20x the funding that we had at any given time. And they just spent a lot of money. With the last one actually just shut down a few months ago. For us, we've always focused on one, having a really great experience, but also just like leveraging our technology to build something that's scalable, that's asset light, that can be easily easily can be replicated from one market to another. And so it's amazing to see like how far we've gone, right? So even now, with this, it's a big market,
Mm.
and we've built such competitive advantage. One, if any new entrants come into the space, they have a lot a lot to learn before they
Yeah,
can
yeah.
catch up. But also like we've signed a lot of big deals. We work with over 30 brands now, and we're building a lot of competitive edge, even in terms of making the switching costs higher, because we're integrating and building white label and like integrating with return systems. And so really making it such a sticky marketplace, where from people and consumer perspective, they'll always find really good quality products. And then on the retailer side, we're really solving real problems for them. Yeah, now we're a player of one in a huge market. So
It's incredible. What do you tell yourself as you're like this small, scrappy company and you see your competitors like encroaching or getting better funded? I mean, how do you deal with that feeling of like, like,
listen, it was one of the things that we've had to teach ourselves from early on is like focus on the things you can control. Because at the end of the day, like we're a testament to, there's just noise out there, right? Like there's all these, like if you look at the headlines, like our last competitor who just shut down, they raised 45 million 2 years ago, and now they're not here anymore. So, and they'd raised like 7 million total. So like if we focus on them, like, okay, we should just like close shop
for
and
a day?
go
Yeah.
away,
Yeah.
So for us, it's always been, and this was not the first time this happened. We've had, like when we first launched, right around the time we launched, there was another competitor that had raised, like, I think we had raised at that point, like $1 million total. They'd raised 20 million. And within 2 years, they were gone. And,
Ah,
so for us, like that was the first learning, like pay attention to them, but watch them, but don't pay too much attention to them. Focus on your business, focus on delivering something that people love, focus on like building a business that's actually built to last. And the rest will follow. I think it's really important, especially for the founders on the call. It's really, really, really important to not worry about the headlines. They're just headlines, and it's a lot of noise. And as long as you have a sound business, and as long as you're focused on your business and your customers and making sure people love what you're doing, it will work itself out, as it did with us.
that is really, really such a great story. It's fantastic. Um, you talk about like building your business model, and I know that there's a lot of accelerators. And I know that you went through the Y Combinator program, which sounds really sexy. Like, what was your experience? And do you have any advice for early stage founders about participating in an accelerator program?
Yeah, I think accelerators are great. My experience was with Y Combinator. It's such a great way from a community building perspective to just being around people who are all going through similar things as you at the same time. And myself, like and you mentioned in my bio, like I come from Goldman. I worked in like large companies. My co-founder also, he worked at L'Oreal before. So we knew how to scale something from, a few 100 million to, and plus, but getting something from 0 to 1 requires a different skill set. So like it was really humbling to be in that environment where you just need to like roll your sleeves and be scrappy. And I was passing out flyers outside of stores in the middle of winter in February 2014 and doing things that's really unscalable because part of it is like talk to your customers, figure out like what's working, what's not working.
Hey, did you ever drive a truck?
Oh yes.
You did.
I was the first mover because like the movement company we were using canceled on us last minute, and myself and
Oh my
the
God.
co-founder like found ourselves actually in like I think it was like one of the Trump buildings in like the west side of
Yeah,
Manhattan.
yeah, yeah. You just got to do everything, right?
And then like I remember this customer was just like, "What are you doing trying to move this sofa?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Let's hope it works." And I don't think I
Easy
still
knees.
it was a lesson learned. I should not be moving sofas. That's what I learned
Exactly.
from that. Smaller item, yes, for sure.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but generally speaking, to summarize, I think
Yeah.
incubators and accelerators are incredible. I've been fortunate to go through Y Combinator, which is obviously like one of the largest ones and like one of has like a lot of names and big companies that came out of it. But I've also gone like we've one of our investors is Hearst Lab, for example, and Hearst Lab
Oh,
invests in women only companies, and it's not necessarily an incubator and accelerator, but it's a community of some of the most incredible women founders, and they support you. Like the Hearst Corporation supports you in a lot of different ways with their resources, but of course capital. They give you space, and so there's all these programs and like options available for founders that's so because being a founder is so lonely. So if you can find yourself in these communities, it just helps so much.
yeah. You just talked about your co-founder and you built AptDeco with a business partner. And I had a business with a partner, and it's really challenging. And I'm wondering how you like divide responsibilities, how you manage conflict, or maybe differences in your leadership styles, and advice you would give to other founders about maintaining that relationship.
Yeah, it's so full disclosure, my co-founder is also my husband.
Okay,
So,
I wasn't sure about that. Okay, but that's even harder. Or I don't know, maybe
it's
not. I don't know.
it's definitely hard in the relationship, but the reason why we decided to work together is one, we both like experienced the pain point around the same time. And so, I told my story about how I came up with the business, but he in parallel was trying to sell a sofa on Craigslist and people were not showing up. So like we were just so obsessed over this
Right.
problem separately, not related to each other, and just could not stop talking about it. And so that was the first thing, like we kind of connected on that. But then our skill sets are so complementary. I come from engineering and software. So like I know how to build applications and software and product and all these things. And he comes from sales and marketing. He worked at L'Oreal. He launched, probably you've heard a lot of the mascaras that
Yeah.
Maybelline mascaras that a lot of people use. Like he's helped
Everybody.
create
Yeah.
them and launch them and market them and sell them. And so he comes from that experience. So we have very, very complementary skill sets. And so it made sense for us to join forces. At the time we were just dating when we started working on this together. And for us, like how we separate or kind of create distinction is like we actually do have we have to like we've had to create a system where I'm in charge of making certain decisions around the business and he is, and even if we disagree it cannot be always consensus because we have to keep things moving, right? So like we got to
Right.
trust our partners. And so something like I remember when we first did the Subway advertising, I was like, we're gonna spend how much in this?
Yeah, yeah, it's expensive.
And
Yeah.
we didn't really like we had just raised like a few hundred K. So like it was a lot of money for us, in 2014 when most of the time it was like companies like I think it was like Seamless and companies like that were advertising. So and it was his decision. And it was really like transform the business, right? And not to say everything that him and I have done were correct, but like we have to just trust our partner and we have to just divide and conquer, and we're, trust that we're both trying to do what's best for the business.
Okay, I wasn't going to ask this till later, but tell me about a work-life balance. Like, do you have any? Like,
Well, we now
it's
have a
been 10 years. It's like a marathon, you know?
It is definitely a marathon. It's not a sprint. In the beginning, it felt like a sprint. Um,
Yeah.
and we were just like working nonstop and just and which is how I think a lot of founders end up, getting just exhausted and end up, calling it quits. Not necessarily calling it quits, but like they just get
Yeah,
exhausted.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just it's burnt out is the word I was looking for.
Burnt out.
And for us, we've had to learn how to navigate that. It's there's definitely no manual to being a couple, a married
Yeah.
couple, and also launching a business together, and now also parents of a 3.5-year-old. But I will say this, the blessing in this, like the not blessing in disguise, but especially as after we became parents, we have to.
Yeah.
Son was finishing school right now, so my husband is on his way to pick him up. Like, we have to stop working. There's just no, we have no choice. We of course have to also spend time with him, and so it helped us actually create more work-life balance on weekends, in the evenings. But it's so important, no matter how early or medium or late stage you are. It's so important to focus on stuff beyond the business, because it's not about the amount of hours you put in. It's about, like, you know the the results you produce. And so if you can, like having other stuff like working out and or hobbies or going to the gym or seeing friends and things of that nature are just as important, because it's what keeps you going and what keeps your feel going. We've had moments just to, where we still regret like missing some friends' weddings. Like, it was during the time where it was just like burning the midnight oil. And like to this day, we're just like, we should have gone. Like, it's,
Oh, I know.
it did not really it wouldn't have made a big difference in the business. And at the time we were just
So,
so fixated on like the day to day.
yeah, I mean, I think we all have that. Like, this meeting is so important. I cannot miss this meeting. And then you're like 4 days later, it's like it never, you forgot that it even happened, but you remembered the thing that you missed that you shouldn't have.
Exactly.
Yeah, the
Exactly.
friend's dinner or whatever. It's really hard to keep that in mind.
So yeah, for the founders in the room, like take the time, take care of yourselves. I'm still learning how to do that, by the way. Like I'm still like trying to work out more than I do. But just take the time. It's going to be fine. Like it's actually going to make you even better, right? Like having that fresh mind and fresh break is so important, as you're thinking about building something that's like a long-term and hopefully scalable.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key where you say it's a marathon, like it's a long-term thing. So, right, you just have to
Yes.
sort of keep that in mind too. So you're saying like going from 0 to 1 and like managing, like, so how has your leadership style evolved from leading, like what you were leading big teams, but then leading a small founding team to now managing a larger national organization? Like, what's been your biggest learning curve there in terms of leadership?
I mean, it definitely has changed. I like to think I've become a better leader. But I think also like coming from like large corporations helped us create a framework from day one. Uh,
Right.
and so I think a lot of startups when they're started, especially like from younger founders who've may not have had any corporate experience, is just
Mhm.
there's really no structure, and it's just every day is so different, and like it's there's no meetings, there's no one-on-ones, there's none of that. But from the beginning, like we brought that discipline, that corporate discipline, to our business. And I remember even like some of our early employees who had worked in startups before, they're just like, wow, it's so refreshing that we have a scheduled weekly one-on-one or like a weekly
Right.
meeting. And so I think that helped, just having, we actually were both leaders. Like I ran a team of like 30 plus engineers at Goldman, and Colin was like running, I think, a team of, I believe, 50 or so. So we've had that experience in large corporations. I think it was what we had to learn is like, how do you deal with like just having a small team and wearing a million hats at a time? Um,
Yeah.
as we scaled, I think it's gone easier also because we were being able to apply more in that corporate experience to what we do. But for us, like, it's very important to be transparent. It's very important to be authentic. It's like even as part of our ethos and what we created in the business, we like say like no passive aggressiveness, being direct but nice, like just be nice as a person. And like but we lead by example. It's very important that
Right.
this is how we lead, just by people seeing how we're doing it, and we're not just saying it, we're actually applying it. And like we've have incredible team. Our team is incredible. A lot of them have been with us for many, many years. Even like our delivery teams, we
Yeah.
actually we have a CNBC feature coming out next week, and so they did this whole
Um,
like recording on us, and the two delivery team members they're going to be featured. They started with us in 2014, so they've been
um,
with us for almost for 10 years actually, and it just speaks to what we've
speaks to it.
created, right? And so of course this is not to say like we're perfect and everything is fine and dandy, but it really like starts like with that, like respecting our team, respecting them, seeing that we're like we're saying what we're doing, or we're doing what
Mhm.
we're saying, is like super important.
Yeah. It's always frustrating when you're someplace where they have like a set of values, but then it's not.
It's not actually practiced. Yes. Yeah,
Yeah, it's better to like do what you say.
exactly.
Um, it's so interesting. I have a son who, when he was like 20, 21, coming out of college, joined this startup of kids that were like 1 year ahead of him. None of them had graduated from college yet. And it was just like to see that them putting together that company. I mean, it was sort of great because like no rules, you know what I mean? Like they didn't know how to do anything, you know? And so the idea that they could have just taken, saved so much time and energy by having somebody with like big company experience to just like set it, like they had to learn so much. And I can't imagine how great it is for you two to come together with so much experience. And then,
Yeah, a lot of it is learning on the job, right? Especially when you're like everybody's fresh out of college. And there was definitely positives to that.
yeah,
I think there's
yeah,
the lack, it's not for everyone, like the lack of
yeah,
structure becomes so unstructured that you're just like, what are
yes.
we doing? Like, what's the goals? Like, and everything changes every day. It's hard when you have like, at the end of the day, employees are not the founders, and like you need to create that separation and like that,
Right.
and lead them and help them sort of navigate those challenges.
Have you had a mentor that made a big difference to you in your entrepreneurial journey, or how do you approach being a mentor to others?
Yeah, so many, even I've had like not necessarily like formal mentors, what I would call mentors, but
Yeah,
so many people that I call on, whether it's even friends and classmates from business school to early investors that have become advisors, and even if when they've moved on. And like a couple of examples, like one of the folks who's, I think it was our first institutional investor, who's no longer works at this fund. I literally still call him probably like at least once a month, and like we have, about everything and anything. Whether, it's not just about introductions, but like, hey, like I'm dealing with this cash flow issue. Like, what do you think I should do? Like stuff like
yeah,
that, even stuff where I'm not necessarily always trying to call our board for, just to get advice, like an independent advice.
hmm
Been critical. So building like authentic relationships, where it's meaningful for both individuals, and has been really critical, and is the reason why we're still here. Like a lot of people that we've worked with professionally over the years have become partners and mentors, and for example, even like as we now are building more on the circularity and sustainability, I've learned a lot from early partners who have now become friends and mentors to help me understand the space and like how to be authentic about it, and making sure
right.
that we're it's not greenwashing, for example, right? So like it's a
Yeah,
lot of, yeah. So there's been a lot of that. And how I approach mentorship is showing up. I think there's a lot of time. Like for me, it's so important, when people reach out, is I'm not perfect, but I try to like be
yeah,
responsive and show up and be there, and like remember how it was in the early days, and just be available, be available when of course within reason, It's so important. And mentorship comes in so many different ways and shapes and sizes. Sometimes people reach out like, hey, I'd love an intro. Can you help me with that? Or, hey, could you look at this application? I'm applying to YC. Or, it just comes in so many different ways. And um, I'm always happy to help when I can.
Mm, that's great. Thank you. I should have asked you this earlier, but like around fundraising, you just mentioned that. So you've successfully raised capital in a landscape where less than 3%, and I think it's 0.5% of VC money goes to Black women, of VC funding that goes to women founders. So that's 3% really sucks, and then 0.5% is just, awful. So what strategies have proved most effective for you, and how have you raised money? And like, tell us about what you're doing now in this next raise.
Yeah, so fundraising has definitely been a journey, and like the stats are real, and which means applies to the experience. My experience of fundraising is definitely going to be very different than like your average guy or average, frankly,
Yeah.
white guy, right? So for us, kind of to your question about YC, that really helped us, right? Introduced us to a network of investors. Like our first checks actually came from the YC partners. Like I think our first 500K mostly came from angels and YC partners. And I don't, while I went to Wharton and I have that network, I didn't like I didn't come from like a fundraising background. I don't have a family of like to go and ask for like friends and family to ask money like that. And so YC really helped prepare us to the VC world. So that's another reason why I would encourage, like, if, going through an incubator. So that helped us get our first checks. And it also opened us to a huge network. That being said, we got the meetings, but it doesn't mean that we got the checks, right? Like our strategy have been most of the time that what people advise is like, should have a seed round and you close it, or pre-seed and close it and have a closing date, and then raise your next round
Yeah.
and close it, and everything happens within like these milestones. That's not the reality for me and most people I know who look like we've always had rolling closes. And
Oh,
which
interesting.
the thing is, like, it makes it challenging to run a business because you really want enough capital in at the same time. So you can plan, oh, I'm gonna hire X number of people and do this, marketing campaigns or build whatever features. But if you're getting it in small chunks over the years,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be very smart with how you're spending and take some crazy risks. So from a strategy perspective, like I've definitely leaned on our network. We've leaned on the YC network. I've leaned on, especially early on, actually impact funds. Funds who are focused on whether it's Black founders or minority founders or women founders. And actually the first checks that came in outside of the angel investors were mostly impact funds related. I think Comcast Ventures, for example, had a fund called the Catalyst Fund. That was the first institutional money that we got. That was not an angel. Then fast forward, we got money from Morgan Stanley. They have a fund as well for like women and diverse founders. Hearst, same thing. And then our first like institutional non-impact fund was initialized in 2019. So speak about like, we launched in 2014. It took us like 6-7 years to
Wow.
get that institutional funding. But, for us, we just, no is a no, and you just keep moving and you just do it the way that works for you. I think a lot of people talk about like there's only one way to do this, but I completely disagree with that. You just need to do what you need to run your business. At the same time, funding is not necessarily for every business. So I know we all went to Wharton, so we have, probably a lot of people have ambitions to be billion-dollar businesses, but there are ways to build a business without actually needing external capital. And I would implore everyone to think about that a lot before you decide to go after VC capital.
Mm. And tell us what you're doing with WeFunder now, because we spoke with Carolyn Stralska, who was on Shark Tank and raised money for Overplay, but I know that she and her partner raised a lot of money on WeFunder, and I know it's a way for all of us to sort of like become an investor, but in different businesses. But like, tell us about WeFunder.
Yeah, so we actually opened it up, which it's been incredible. We've opened it up this round to our community, and And so, and anyone can invest actually. And so like we invited our customers initially to invest in AptDeco, and the response has been incredible. And the strategy behind that is like for us, two things. One, we having customers be investors is the best marketing, right? These are people who believe in your business, who are going to tell their friends about it. And now with investing with their own capital, they're actually going to even go the extra mile. So like from a strategy perspective, it made sense. It was also such a validator. Like we just hit over 4 million from customers, supporters, and some institutional investors too. But it's been incredible to see the support. Like we've had customers invest as little as $100 and invest as high as like $200,000 from individuals, people who've used our website, who we've emailed, say, hey, we've invited you to be part of it. And now we're inviting our friends, our community, everyone here is welcome to invest if they're interested. I'm also happy to, if you're interested in investing a substantial amount of money, I'm also happy to talk offline about it. But it's been such a rewarding experience. So that's the one reason. Second reason is, we do need the capital. And this is an example of, for me, I'm not going to just do one thing, right? Like there's, okay, you've reached this level, you've raised 19 million. That means that at this point you should go to a growth round. I know I need this amount of capital that will get me to a certain milestone. And after that, I'm going to do a growth round. And so I'm going to do it whatever way I think is get me there faster.
Right. Okay. So I think that Melinda is putting the link in case anybody wants to learn more about it. It's actually a really, really cool platform. But if you want to learn more about WeFunder and AptDeco, it's there's a link there. We do have some questions, and before we go to questions, I also want to acknowledge Carolyn Daloff, who's on the call, who was the former co-president, and she's been doing a lot of live sessions out of in the West Coast, super involved in the AI field. And so I'm wondering how you're using AI in your business. Like, where are you seeing it being most helpful to you?
Yeah, so we're actually just about to integrate it into our curation tooling, and like listing process. So imagine when you're listing, right now you have to fill out a form and take photos. What we're moving towards is like you take a photo of your piece, we'll automatically like pre-fill everything, as much things as possible, information as possible, like, oh, this is a sofa that is, looks like this color and these dimensions. So really autofill as much stuff as possible, auto tagging the type of information. So really like to help with discoverability and just finding the product faster, but also listing it quicker. We're also integrating it in our logistics, a lot in the logistics side. So better prediction for our routes, better prediction for scheduling. So really can help make the routing better, which makes it more affordable for our customers. So because we'll be more efficient. And so, yeah, so it was just starting the process of integrating AI.
Reham, is there anything like really interesting that we would never guess about the business, like how seasonality affects it, or I don't know. Is there something that like we would be like, oh my God, I never thought that that's when people are buying or selling furniture? Okay, you can think about that. I was just wondering, is there
Yeah.
something, like a little nugget that we can, take to dinner and be like, did you know that?
A good question. I have to think about that. Like I more on the business strategy versus like I'm thinking about stuff on the business strategy versus because a lot of people are surprised, like, oh, I didn't know you do logistics, or I didn't know you're handling returns for all these brands, or I didn't, like there's stuff like that people are always surprised about, but just more about like user. Let me think about that. The user side.
It
Yeah.
is really interesting that returns and logistics is so difficult. Like companies are used to like selling and pushing the stuff out. So anybody who can know about like taking things back and doing something else with them is,
Yeah. So 15% of furniture is returned. It's one of the highest in like all the industries. So it's a big problem for these furniture brands. And the reverse logistics is super expensive. And so like it's actually every time you're returning, that's why like if you've shopped on Wayfair, a lot of people
sometimes
they tell you just like
keep.
don't worry about it because it's so expensive for them to return it. It's not worth it, but it's such a bad customer experience. So what we've actually built there, which is something that I'm really, really excited about, is like completely changing how returns happen. And so now when you won't feel it as a customer, but for the brand, it's a big deal. We actually intercept returns from the customer's home. They go on our marketplace, we sell them very quickly, we pick them up and deliver it to the new buyer. So like changing how returns are done completely, which is so cool, but it's so hard to do.
Yeah.
And it's saving them a ton of money. And it's also better for the customer from a customer experience perspective, because who wants to have two sofas in their home when like one it
No,
came,
no,
right? So like
no, no,
we're
it's
just
terrible.
working on like
It's terrible.
really solving like real problems for these retailers, which for me is all about supply. I'm doing all this stuff because I want all this great supply
Right.
that my marketplace needs. Yes. Because we've
Right.
already built
That's really interesting.
technology, we've built we've built the logistics, we've built the technology, we've built all these things that can be applied in different ways.
Oh, that's super interesting. Okay, I'm going to some questions now. Are you franchising or are all the entities company owned?
All company owned, not franchising. Never considered
Would you,
franchise.
would you? No.
Um, I I don't know much about franchising, so I never say never, but have not considered it. I would need to learn more.
Um, how did Reham build the software for the peer-to-peer platform? Initially, did she do the coding on her own to build the MVP? Would appreciate if she can share tips on building the tech team.
Yes. So initially I did build it on my own,
Wow.
the very, very, very early MVP. And then when we went through YC, because it was just myself and Column, and we were trying to like actually build the business, I actually outsourced. I brought in an outsourced team because we were still, actually before YC, we were still not funded yet. And so I outsourced it first, and then once we raised capital, we brought the techno like the engineering team in house. Building a tech team, I think it's really helpful if you have someone that comes from a tech background as a partner, because like you need that help to vet and interview. So I think first and foremost, if you're not a technical if you're not a technical founder, I would encourage you to find a technical co-founder. If not, which I know it's very hard to find, an advisor that can help you with hiring and interviewing for that role. There is, for example, if you're looking for a technical co-founder, just gonna plug it here. Y Combinator actually recently launched a co-founder matching tool for free. And a lot of the folks on there are actually engineers. So that could be a good resource if you're looking for a technical co-founder.
Thank you. It's so interesting. You built it all yourself. Um, any tips for running an equity crowdfunding campaign and potential pitfalls to watch out for?
So yes, I have plenty of tips, but first and foremost, it's a lot of work. It is not, when we first did it, I'm like, oh, we'll just like launch it and it'll work itself out. But it's like you have to have a marketing strategy. The tips are, I would say, one, having a really good messaging, a great information about what your business is, so that the retail investor, which is essentially a non-accredited investor, like understands it and can get behind it, especially if you're going outside of your customer base. Picking the right platform for you. Also, there's a few, we're using WeFunder, but there's a few others out there. So make sure you're picking the right platform based on your business. Two, there actually are marketing agencies that help with this. Some of them are affordable, some of them can get very pricey, but they can essentially help be your right-hand woman slash man to like help create the campaigns, the content, the emails, the graphics, the communication. So potentially that's something you may want to consider if you're considering your equity crowdfunding. I would say these are probably the three key things I would start with. But if you are looking to start one, I'm happy to also talk offline about it. Feel free to reach out to me, r@aptdeco.com.
I see a question here from Ray Dewan that says, what are your downside risks? Ray, I'm not sure if you mean like overall or on something specific, and you can unmute and explain to make sure we get the right answer to your question. Or what are you, I guess, what are your downside risks? What do you, yeah.
I'm assuming related to the business, so I'll answer it that way, but correct me, like, feel free to clarify if
Yeah.
it's something else. I think like the most challenging part or risky parts of the business is like maintaining quality as scaling, because we don't own the inventory and we don't own, like, so the quality control is really important. We're investing a lot on that. Every product remains in the customer's home or the retailer's, distribution center. So like we don't know exactly the condition, but we do a lot of work. That's why curation tooling with AI, all these things that we're integrating is to help with that. Also quality of service with logistics as we scale. We when in the Northeast region, we're doing the logistics ourselves. We have our own employees, but in other markets, we're outsourcing and we've built a carrier network, but it's still contractors. So there is that risk of quality. And for us, is something that we're obsessed over. We use our data. They have to meet certain scorecard to be part of our carrier network. But it's definitely, as you scale, going from 10,000 orders to 1,000,000 orders, hopefully a month, that's a different ball game. And like we have to continue to iterate and make sure we maintain quality. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think so. Yeah. Wait, someone's raising. Bo, do you have a question?
Yes, I could have 100 questions, but just wanted to say thank you for sharing your experience and all the information and all of your responses to the questions. I feel like we're twins. So my business is a baby gear rental service, but it's based on a lot of the same foundations in terms of mission and sustainability and making the sustainable choice the easy choice. That's my little tagline, my interpretation of it. So in this space, where I'm a lot younger than you, we started in 2020. And so it's been really inspiring to see your journey and to see where, we might be headed next, although our models are very different. But I guess two questions for you to get to the actual questions is this jump from having entirely owned operations in a regional network to, okay, I'm gonna go national now. How did you make that jump? And you said you're outsourcing, but how did you make that decision and find all these potential partners? And did they even exist in all the regions that you wanted to be in? And then the second question is, have you thought of, or maybe you already are in the process of maybe attaining B Corp status to really cement that sustainability aspect?
Yes, I'm going to answer the second question first. Yes, I really want to do it. I just have not had the time. And so I'd love help with that. So
I can help you.
amazing. Yes, I really want to do it. It's just more of a time thing more than anything else. As far as the first question, how do we make this jump? It came from we got pressure to launch nationally because our brand partners have needs across the country, and like it's gonna take lots of money to like launch logistics in every market. And so that was a fast track way to solve that problem. And we knew there were risks with that, but we were willing to take that risk. And so we found actually a marketplace called like UShip, if you're considering going national. And like that was the first iteration of what we did. And so we launched nationally and we just integrated with UShip, and like they were able to match us with all these carriers. But after a couple of years of running it, we realized just that we have so little control that we needed to essentially like tear it apart and rebuild it. And so we just launched this carrier network recently by working with a lot of carriers and partners over the last couple of years. We built a scorecard of like who's great and who's not. And then like now they're like leveraging our technology and our scheduling and all of that, but they are working with us directly versus through a third party marketplace. So now we're actually in the process of repackaging that separately because we got approached by large brands who want to use what we've built. So we're repackaging that separately also as a different product, and people can integrate with it. Companies can integrate with it directly.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, okay, 5:59. It'd be great I so appreciate everybody's time today, Reham. It's been just great talking to you. I know we, like Bo just said, I have 100 more questions. I think we all do. We're wishing you so much luck. I want to check out WeFunder at /AptDeco. And thank you everybody for joining. Caitlin, Netta, Caro, Melinda, thank you so much for masterminding everything behind the scenes. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait I'm going on your site. I'm shopping a little. I'm gonna go
Thank you.
shop. You have some really cool stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much everyone for being here and listening to my story. And yeah, like if you guys have any questions, I know there's a lot of founders in the room, if I'm happy to be here as a resource. And so yeah, definitely feel free to contact me, R at AptDeco or R Fagiri at AptDeco or Reham at AptDeco. All of them will come to me. So yeah.
And one more thing, I should have said Melinda's first internship was with you at AptDeco. So it's all full circle.
Yes, it's full circle. I'm so happy to speak with WAFFA. It was amazing to reconnect.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you. See ya, everyone.
Bye, have a good
Thank you so
evening.
much.
Bye.
Thanks, Melinda.